and welcome to Changing What's Possible, the Disability Innovation Podcast brought to you by Cerebral Palsy Alliance Research Foundation, or CPARF. I'm your host, Dr. Marie McNeely, and this season we are excited to bring you extraordinary stories about how disability, technology, and innovation come together. In part 2 of our 2-part interview featuring Hominid X, we'll have 2 guests joining us, Thane and Megan Dloniak. Listeners, Thane is founder and CEO of Hominid X, one of the startup companies in our 2023 Remarkable U.S. Accelerator program. In addition, Thane is a senior systems engineer at Desktop Metal. And our second guest today is Megan Dloniak. She is a stroke survivor who has been using Hominid X's products in her everyday life, and I'm excited to chat with her later in today's episode. But first, Thane, welcome back to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Now, in the first part of our interview, in the previous episode, you talked about Hominid X and your product Fiber. And today I want to start by talking about another one of your products, Modern Cuff. So, Thane, what kinds of tasks can this product help with?
The Modern Cuff is a more specialized tool than Fiber. It goes back to that mono task thing. So it can be used for eating, teeth brushing, shaving, applying makeup, and using a pen or pencil. You could do other little cylindrical things with it, like holding a sparkler, although I wouldn't recommend that, or a lollipop, I don't know,
Sure.
Flag on a holiday, I don't know. So it covers a lot of important basic tasks. It is a bit like existing universal cuffs, but it achieves that goal in a better way by just being, I think, a slightly more thoughtful design.
That makes sense. And again, to help us envision what this product looks like, can you describe it and how it works?
So it's super simple. It's made of a soft but durable silicone rubber, the same sort of material actually that major brands like Samsung and Apple and Fitbit are using for their smart wearables. So it straps around the palm of your hand and has kind of a long, narrow pocket embedded into the strap. And that pocket can be used to hold all kinds of objects. So again, it's very simple.
Can you describe maybe a little bit the process that you went through to develop this Modern Cuff product and how potential users were involved in that process?
So early on, I got worried that Fiber was too unique for the market. A lot of occupational therapists really liked it, but the ones who didn't like it said it was because of their preference for extremely, extremely simple solutions. So I thought Fiber was simple, and they're saying it needs to be even simpler. And they pointed out, truthfully, that there are some people who won't have the motor function, maybe on the opposite side, to even operate Fiber. So that's no good. We want to have something for everyone. So we created the Modern Cuff to be simple while still being more functional and better looking than what was commercially available, these kind of older school universal cuffs. Once we worked out the basics, and we already had a little bit of a user base from Fiber, so it was easier this time around. We had about 5 occupational therapists try it, along with, I want to say, 6 actual daily users. And we worked with the therapists as a first pass during the early prototypes, and we got their feedback and insight to detect egregious flaws or missed opportunities. And once we did that for a few cycles, we went to the actual users. At that point, we knew the product fundamentally worked, and we were talking to the users just to polish and make it as good as it could be. So very similar to Fiber, but with a little bit of a user base and an email list, it was a lot easier this time around.
Absolutely. And I like that you sort of took a moment to stop and reflect, decide, and that's a difficult decision, I think, to make as a company. Do you try to make one product that works for everybody, or do you kind of branch out a little bit and make a few different products to try to meet the needs of more people? How did you make that decision, or what kind of tipped the scales for you?
Oh, it was hard. You can talk to some of my team members, and there's just some text threads where I'm going back and forth, and it's just hot and cold all over the place. But what I finally decided was, by offering this other product, I was actually freeing myself to really target Fiber's design and not always be so worrying about making every tiny little aspect flexible. Because the moment I can go back to the design requirements document for Fiber and say, okay, well, we can require that they have some function in their opposite hand, then that really frees us up to make Fiber really ambitious and really competitive. But we're not leaving those people who do have an opposite affected side out in the cold, because we make this product to address them. So I still think that a Swiss Army knife approach is great when you can, but there's a hard line to walk there to really make sure that you're not making one bad product when you should have made 3 good products.
Exactly. I think that's such a smart decision, because you're absolutely right. You can ruin it completely by trying to fit in too many different disconnected features or things that are incompatible with the different people's needs. So can you maybe tell us a little bit more about Modern Cuff? What really makes this product unique and really distinguishes it from other things on the market?
So my pitch for the modern cuff is that it's just a new age version of a traditional tool called a universal cuff. My occupational therapist friend said, and she said I could quote her, universal cuffs have been around forever. So this is just a newer version of that. The basic idea is the same. You have a pocket strapped onto the hand. Before developing the modern cuff, I purchased and tested every cuff available that I could buy. And they all had one or more fundamental usability issues. Actually, before most of them even arrived at my door, I could read their Amazon or whatever online review, and they would say things like, this was almost a lifesaver, or good idea, poor execution, disappointed people. So we had a beta user of the modern cuff who told us about how her hospital gave her one of these older cuffs, but the designers had actually made that pocket too small to even hold a pen. And as a side note, I don't think distributors should be selling that kind of stuff. It's interesting that they call them universal cuffs because they're not universal. They're local cuffs or something like that. So going into this development program, I knew that all we needed to do was take the basic idea, which is very tried and true and very accepted, by the way, by occupational therapists, which is important from an adoption perspective. All we had to do was take it over the line. The product is about function, not being clever. We took the idea of a universal cuff and just made it work. We got away from all the beige, scratchy Velcro and used, again, my favorite smartwatch silicone rubber. We designed a pocket with an asymmetric stiffness profile so that it stretches enough to hold a dry erase marker, but is still stiff enough in the other direction to hold a fork reliably for eating. And then I couldn't help myself. We had to add some additional cool little features. So we added this little flippable tab that allows people to give the pocket a floor or be able to push something like a pen all the way through, which shortens that lever arm and gives you a little bit more control when you write. So these are all improvements that could have been done, honestly, in 1935, but better late than never. I think the whole product was ideated and brought to users for testing within 30 or 40 days. So that beta user that I mentioned before, by the way, from the hospital, she's using the modern cuff now, and she says she actually loves it for writing. So now it's just about continued refinement and getting it onto more people's hands.
Absolutely. Well, 30 to 40 days is a remarkable timeline to be working on for that particular product. And I know, Thane, you've had a lot of really exciting milestones that you've achieved as an entrepreneur. So what has this journey been like for you?
The journey has been pretty wild. You mentioned milestones. So a huge milestone was actually getting into the Remarkable Tech US Accelerator program. The wisdom and guidance and value alignment from the program operators has been just totally game-changing and critical for us. I worked really hard to get into the program, and getting that acceptance letter felt like a sign. Like, if we don't give up, the universe will actually, just like all the books promised me, will actually start yielding a tiny bit. And there have been other milestones too, like submitting some patent applications, launching a new product at a hand therapy annual conference, hiring my first corporate lawyer. It's been fun. There have been a lot of milestones. The journey has been definitely harder than I expected, but I also think it's a little inaccurate when so many startup gurus claim that the surprising difficulty there is like an entrepreneurship specific thing. I think countless things I've tried in the past were far more difficult than I thought that they'd be. I think it's common. So that confidence to despair back to confidence curve is playing out pretty much the same way here as anything else I've learned. I don't have it all figured out, but I know that that will come someday as long as we keep going.
Absolutely. I think this feeling that things are harder than you expected is often a sign of optimism. So it's good to hear that you're this optimistic person.
Oh, yeah. So optimistic. I have to be. Otherwise, it would just be really hard.
Absolutely. So let's think about, maybe talk about the future of Hominid X, Thane. What is your vision for the future of the company?
I need to think about it more, but right now our products are simple but useful, and I like to think they're clever, and they're definitely inexpensive. And as our resources grow, we'll develop more sophisticated, and I don't mean complex, but sophisticated solutions. There's a difference. We'll do robotics. We'll do the mobile app stuff. We'll branch out and deal with other unsolved challenges like sense of balancing, like vestibular disorders, tremors, things like that. The important parts will be our move fast, get feedback approach, really diligent engineering, and a fixation on value to the user instead of just considering cost and function by themselves in a vacuum. So that's the future outlook at this point.
Wonderful. And you talked a little bit about the potential market earlier for Hominid X and some of your products, but who do you think, if you had to summarize, could benefit from using these products that you've developed so far at Hominid X?
Anyone who needs help holding objects. The list of formally medically diagnosable situations is really big, but even outside of that, I would say anyone who feels or is encountering a reduced range of motion or strength reduction in their hand should at least try our products. If they don't like them, they can send them back and get their money back, right? They should just try it. So tremors or even hand cramps, arthritis, more and more things come to my mind as I talk. So Even if someone doesn't think they need a tool right now, I would ask them to keep in mind that we're not really positioning ourselves as a medical device company. We're just making tools that make hands work even better. I think gloves do this, screwdrivers do this, can openers do this. It's a tool for people who want to hold things. And as our product line grows, we'll have something perfect for more and more people.
Absolutely. And I know users can buy this product directly, but you also have been working with and talking to a lot of clinicians. Can you talk about, I guess, what clinicians should be thinking about this product?
Clinicians, their first responsibility is to do no harm and to maximize the improvement in quality of life for their patients. So part of them doing their job is to be skeptical of new things. And early on, I'll be honest with you, that put me in a kind of I don't want to say hostile stance, but definitely like, oh, come on, guys, let's get our heads out of the sand and look at the future. But the more I think about it, they're doing their job really, really well. And it's on me to prove that what we have is something good. So I open the challenge, but I do say that I require the opportunity. So as long as people are always willing to talk with us, we'll do our best to show them that what we have is something worth getting for their patients. That's why the modern cuff exists now. It's to say, look, wow, for this simple task, you crushed that. So let's talk about fiber now. And then let's talk about the robotic stuff in the future. So the occupational therapists and clinicians are still watching. They're a little bit more hesitant, but at least the non-early adopters are. But I would say just keep watching, keep an open mind, and we're going to do everything we can to impress them.
Certainly. So can you talk a little bit next, Thane, about the impacts that your products are having or maybe have the potential to provide for their users?
So when I was developing these products, I tried to use them as if I couldn't function without them. And I'm not trying to say that I fully understand what it is like to have a hand disability, but I'm an engineer and I'm pretty good at imagining different physiomechanic situations. So even that exercise was enough for me to see that products like this can have a pretty big impact on people's lives. And nowadays, the more feedback I get from our users, the more validated that assumption feels. People are riding bikes after not being able to with our products. We've got people drawing again. We just heard from someone who's going to try to use our products to speed up their baking skills fast enough so that they can open their own baking business out west. And reading this stuff never gets old. It's like we did this. So when we develop new products, we're not developing for a population of some statistically estimated size. I have stories and names and faces in my head, and having that is pure condensed 100% motivation. So I think we're having an impact and we're enjoying seeing it play out.
Well, Thane, thank you so much for sharing more about yourself and more about the company with all of us today. If our listeners want to learn more about you and more about Hominid X, what is the best way for them to do so?
They can go to www.hominidx.com, or they can look us up on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all those places. We're there.
Excellent. Well, listeners, definitely get connected with Hominid X. Check out that website. And Thane, we really appreciate you joining us to share your insights and experiences with me and our listeners today.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been fun.
Well, Thane, it's been a pleasure to chat with you. And next, listeners, we are excited to be speaking with our second guest, Megan Dloniak, someone who has real-world experience using Hominid X's products. Megan had a stroke as a teenager, and she is going to talk more about her experiences and share her thoughts about Hominid X. So Megan, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. We're delighted to have you.
Thank you for having me.
We are looking forward to chatting with you a little bit more about your experiences. So can you start by telling our listeners a little bit more about yourself?
So my name is Megan. When I was 15 years old, I had a massive stroke that paralyzed the entire left side of my body. And I just really never gained function back in my hand after that.
Well, that must have been really challenging for you to go through when you were so young. So, Megan, can you tell us a little bit more about what happened immediately after having that stroke when you were 15?
It really changed my life drastically because I was a ballet dancer. So having half of your body paralyzed, I just wasn't able to do dance after that, which was basically my entire life. I was a little bit obsessed with it.
Absolutely. And that's tough to lose something that you were so passionate about. But what was the rehabilitation process then like for you? How did you get back into life after having this major medical event?
It was a long process. I was inpatient for 5 weeks, and then I kept going outpatient, OT, PT, speech also for 2 years after that. And then I switched clinics and went another 5 years somewhere else. And then again, I switched clinics and went another 2 years at another clinic. So it's been a long process.
Certainly. And I know rehabilitation can be a really long process to really get you to the point where you can start feeling like you're getting back to your life and being able now to re-engage with the things that you're passionate about. And it can be frustrating as well. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about how Hominid X fits into your story. So Megan, can you tell us, how did you originally find out about the company Hominid X?
So they reached out to me through my TikTok page. And once I saw their videos and their products, I was really interested because I think gaining that functionality back, even if it's through using assistive devices, it's a huge win for people in my position.
Absolutely. And can you talk a little bit more about your TikTok page and how you've used that to kind of share your message?
I actually was really hesitant to start my page because I'm more of an introvert, just shy, reserved. But I really wanted to use what I've been through to help other people. And that's kind of what's motivated me to do it. I just kind of share my journey, my struggles, how I adapt to things on my page.
So Megan, can you tell us a little bit about what it was like to start this TikTok channel and what the journey has been like for you getting now to this point?
I was super scared at first. I would take every TikTok I made and I would screen record it and I would send it to my sisters and I would say, am I just really silly? Does this make sense? Do you think this would be helpful for people or should I just delete it? And then they would have to watch it and then tell me, oh, you can cut this part out. No, it's really great. You should post it, whatever, because I was just so nervous about it.
Absolutely. And what has some of the feedback been that you've gotten from other people who are watching the channel?
I think it's been really, really positive and great. And I was expecting TikTok. I don't know why I had this preconceived idea that TikTok was just a bunch of teenage girls dancing. So when I joined it, I was like, oh, they're not going to want to see me talking about my disability or the struggles I face or how I adapt to different situations. But everyone's just been so welcoming and it's been a great community.
Well, I'm really glad to hear that it's been a positive experience. Now, is there anything else you'd like to share about how you've really been connecting with this disability community through TikTok?
Yeah, I think it's given me a lot more hope and just having that connection of knowing you're not alone in your struggles is huge. Like feeling alone in something you're struggling with is just so mentally draining, but knowing that other people are going through it with you just gives you so much hope and light for your future.
I think that's awesome. And I think so helpful for others who might be going through the same experience. So you mentioned you discovered Hominid X when they reached out about this TikTok page that you've been running. So what really made you want to try their products?
I watched the videos of their products and I'd never seen anything like what they were selling. The fiber really interested me because I'd never seen, like I said, any assistive device like that.
Absolutely. And were those grasping motions that it helped with, was that something that you were particularly struggling with?
Yes. So I can grasp, but the problem with my grasp is once I grasp something, I drop it easily. So it's really not helpful that I have that function at all because I can't use it. So having something that helps me to hold my grasp is just really big for me.
So then what was it like the first time you actually tried that fiber device that you'd been watching the video on?
So when I opened the box, I initially had like a little panic attack, like, oh my gosh, I didn't pay attention to the video. I don't know how to put this on. But then I pulled it out and I was like, oh, okay, this is easy. It was really self-explanatory. I just put it on, immediately knew what to do. And it worked really well. I didn't have any issues at all.
Gotcha. What was the first thing that you used it on? Do you remember what the first thing is that you were able to pick up and kind of be confident in holding?
Yes, it was a water bottle. And it was funny because the water bottle was actually deformed on the bottom. So it kept falling over.
Oh, no.
So when I was trying to grasp it, it kept falling over. And then finally, I was able to hold it upright long enough to wrap the device around it and get a good grasp on it. And I was just like so proud. I kept smiling. I felt so goofy.
Well, I think it is those little victories that can have such a meaningful impact on your life. So what kinds of objects do you find work particularly well for you to use this fiber device with?
I love cooking and baking, and I found I've always had problems if I'm using jars or cans. I would have to throw a good amount of the product in the jar or can away because I was unable to scoop out everything from the jar. And I've really been able to up my cooking game basically because I can get everything I need out of these jars, or I keep all my flour in jars. So it's made cooking a lot easier. And I feel like everything I'm making tastes a lot better now.
And I'd love to talk more about this baking business. You mentioned that you've been able to get back into cooking, and I think that is phenomenal. Can you tell us what sparked your interest in actually starting a business?
Yeah, so I found out I have celiac disease, which means I have to eat gluten-free. And I love sweets. I am a big sweets person. So I knew when I found out that I had celiac disease that I would have to start baking all my own desserts because I couldn't just stop eating them. So I decided to try to start adapting different recipes like cookies or brownies or cakes, or I got really big into macarons. I love macarons. How I could fit it into gluten-free or even for my friends, dairy-free or egg-free, just adapting to different people's dietary needs, how I can make baked goods that will be for people who can't necessarily go out to a restaurant or a store and buy anything there.
I think that is phenomenal. And it sounds like these Hominid X products have helped make this dream possible. Can you talk a little bit more about that and how it's sort of allowing you to pursue this avenue?
So when I was talking about earlier, my food coming out tasting better, I've been getting lots of compliments on all my baked goods lately. Everyone's been saying, oh, wow, these taste so much better than before. I don't remember them tasting this good. And of course, it makes me so happy because I love that I get to make these desserts for people who can't go out, like I said, and buy them just at regular places. So to see them being able to enjoy these desserts, but also now they taste even better because I'm able to cook them the way I wanted to before. I just wasn't able to.
I think that is remarkable. You can probably taste the love and care that goes into these desserts. Mm-hmm. Well, it sounds like the fiber has already had a positive impact on your life. Are there other things that you use it for? Some other things that have really changed for you since you've started using it?
Yes. So I've also this year been working on brushing my hair, which, like I said, I'm able to grasp things, but I can't keep that grasp for very long. So brushing my hair was really difficult for me because it's been a goal of mine for a long time, but I just never been able to keep a grasp on a brush long enough. And it's really been helping me keep that grasp and build up my arm muscles so that I can actually brush my hair and I'm not so focused on trying to hold on to the brush.
I think being able to kind of relax and enjoy some of these experiences in your life is critical, and not having to worry about just the act of holding the object that you want to hold. That can in itself have a big impact.
Yeah.
So do you have any particular goals that you're working towards in terms of things that you would like to do or things that you're hoping that fiber will allow you to do?
With fiber, I'm just using it and seeing, because I just got it a few weeks ago. So I've just been using it, enjoying the journey so far. But I actually have a goal with the modern cuff. I used to paint and I haven't painted for years. We actually went in my occupational therapy sessions, we would paint and they would help me grasp a paintbrush with my left hand. And they even tried to design something to help me hold it, but it just never worked out. My goal is to eventually use the modern cuff to get back to painting with my left hand.
That is amazing. So what kind of things do you like to paint?
Really nature, like flowers, mountains, sunsets, just landscapes.
Oh, that sounds beautiful. And I love the idea of being able to get back to these hobbies that you love doing and to have this product that really makes it easier for you to do it. So who else do you think might benefit from using Hominid X's products, whether it's the modern cuff or the fiber?
I think really anybody who has any type of hand disability, you can really find any way to incorporate it into your daily routine or any way that you're just struggling, because we live in a world for people with two hands. So having one hand that's non-functional can be really difficult and also just frustrating. So I think anybody who has problems using one of their hands.
And do you have any particular message you'd like to share with listeners who might have a hand disability or who might have had a stroke themselves, who are considering trying fiber or the modern cuff?
I think I've used so many assistive devices and I just kind of gave up on them after a while because I was beginning to think it was just like a marketing scheme, like a way to get my money, not actually help me. But I'm so glad I tried these because they're totally different than any other assistive devices I've ever tried.
Oh, that's wonderful. So what are some of the things that really make the fiber or the modern cuff, either one, different from the devices that you've tried that maybe haven't been as successful for you?
The comfort level, first of all, because some devices I would put on and immediately it's uncomfortable and it hurts, or you're thinking about just the way it's squeezing you or the way it feels. But these are so comfortable. They fit so well and they're extremely adaptive to just different size hands or wrist, whatever it is.
Oh, that's fantastic. And Megan, is there anything else you would like to share about your experiences with the products from Hominid X?
I think that if you're considering buying any products from Hominid X, I would just go ahead and go for it because, like I said, they're different from any other assistive products I've ever used. I highly recommend them. I think they're going to change people's future. that have hand disabilities. They will give you back so much function, and it's really an investment into your future. So I would highly recommend trying it out.
Well, Megan, we really appreciate you joining us today to share your insights and your story. So thank you so much.
Yes, it's been an absolute pleasure to chat with you also.
Fantastic. And listeners, it's been wonderful to have you with us as well. We would be grateful if you could take a moment to leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform to let us know what you think of the show. And we look forward to connecting with you again in our next episode of Changing What's Possible.